super excited. I'm happy everyone can make it to the DLE Culture Chat for today. My name is Cheryl Owen. I am a senior sustainability manager for an architecture firm here in Brooklyn, New York, and just to kind of explain a little bit of what the Culture Chat is. It's a business oriented open forum that examines changes and challenges in today's workplace. In just 60 minutes, we aim to engage multiple perspectives through a moderated format that promotes respectful conversations about vital topics with actionable takeaways. Designed for interactivity, the program unites accomplished professionals from various backgrounds. We have a diverse mix of frequent attendees and also newcomers joining in from diverse regions, industries, and even countries. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to have Corrie talk about are your unconscious assumptions holding you back? Corrie's a dear friend of mine, and I think she's going to do a much better job introducing herself than I ever can. I'll turn it over to Corrie.
Aw, sweet. Thank you, Cheryl. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you're here for this really relevant conversation. Emotional intelligence is more important than it has ever been. And a large part of EQ, or emotional intelligence, are our assumptions and truly how they hold us back. So with that being said, who the heck am I? Again, my name is Corrie Weikle, and I am the founder of IntrospectiveYOU, which essentially is emotional intelligence, relational intelligence coaching. I am also the director of solutions at Goodstone Group, which is a global coaching firm. I am now officially a pilot, and I do Iron. Yes, lots of thumbs up. Ironman, I'm an ambassador to the Ironman Foundation, so I love to move my body. I do a lot of triathlons. But more important to who I am, I had a traumatic brain injury about 11 years ago. And a big part of my life has been being a transitional character for my family. So really understanding who I am and what I bring to the world, and understanding where I get in my own way and my blind spots. And hopefully transitioning some really core patterns that show up in my personal and professional life. So my whole model, or my mantra for my life, is being proof of the possible. And the reason I'm sharing all this with you is because something that has totally transformed my life is becoming self-aware and using models to understand my thinking, really intimately understanding who I am. And so what I'm sharing in the next 20 minutes, and then we're going to have a conversation, is incredibly powerful. So if you can embody it and integrate it into your life, you can change your life. All of these things that I've listed are really proof of the work that I've done, and a tiny sliver of that I'm going to share with you today, and I hope you find it valuable. So why are we here? I'm hoping you will have some fun today, and that we will leave this conversation with a framework for really seeing your blind spots, something I've spent a lot of time doing myself. And if you do the poll at the end, you'll actually get the step-by-step process framework to do this when you leave today. So today is going to be a toe in the water, a taste, an introduction to one of the lenses you can use to see yourself. And I hope you also leave here with some empathy and a deeper connection to who you are. And when we do that, we're able to empathize and connect with other people, which in today in virtual environments is more difficult than ever. So really great opportunity to do that. So if you can jump into the chat, my question to you is, what comes up for you when you see this image? Just put in the chat. There's no right or wrong answer. What comes up for you as you see this image? Oh yeah, amazing. Cheeseburger. Tasty burger. Heart disease. Thank you, Scott. Summertime with my dad. Lunch. Beyond Burger has come a long way. I miss eating out with friends. Heart attack. Yeah. So why the heck do I have a burger? It's kind of a shocking image when we're talking about emotional intelligence and self-awareness. And the reason I have a burger here is because we're all looking at the exact same image, and the meaning we're making of it is so dramatically different. So some people are experiencing, eating out with their friends, or the missing, the yearning for that. Some of us are seeing it and saying, whoa, animal welfare here. This better be a vegan burger or a vegetarian burger. Beyond Burger has come a long way. Some of us are, oh, there's a stimulation, maybe some nostalgia around, I want to go eat a burger, or I want this burger for lunch. The point is that the way we're observing and then seeing the burger is creating an emotional response inside of us, stimulating emotions, whether if you're the vegan or the vegetarian, negative emotions like dread or shame or sadness for what may come from this burger. Or maybe if the burger means time out with your family, then it's joy or love. But the point is that those emotions and the meaning you're making of this burger are ultimately determining how you're going to behave. So it determines whether you go eat the burger, or if you choose to avoid it, or maybe you go tell other people, hey, you shouldn't eat burgers. They're bad for you. They might cause a heart attack. So we're all looking at the same thing, and this leads to, we don't see things truly as they are, we see them as we are. And in order for us to understand our behavior and the choices we make and create the life we want, personally, professionally, we need to understand how we see things, how we see the burger, how we see relationships. So the question becomes, who are you as the observer of the cheeseburger, or the observer of your relationships, your boss, your life? This conversation right now, you're observing this conversation, you're an observer. And so I'm going to introduce two models, and they're pretty simple models. You'll probably have questions about them, and there's going to be an opportunity to talk about them at the end, so just hold your questions. The first model is called the OR model. And traditionally, as humans, we like to think about our actions and results. So we like to say, there's actually an entire multi-billion-dollar industry built on this model here, which is the weight loss industry. They say, go to the gym, eat really well, change your actions, and you'll get different results. But the reason that industry is so successful actually is because it doesn't really work. Behavior change doesn't work that way. So the really powerful opportunity comes when we change the way we observe, when we know how we see the burger, how we see ourselves, how we see relationships, all of the ways our brains have been shaped in relationship and keep us alive. This is about observing as a way that we stay alive. So what science says is if we change the way we observe and we understand it, this is where self-awareness, this is where our unconscious bias live, our assumptions live, then we are powerful. We can create and choose however we want and create the life we truly want. Who we are as observers has to do with three things. Language, so this is about thinking, analyzing in the moment. Feeling, what are our emotions? How am I feeling or experiencing this in the moment? And then our body, our sensations, our touch, our taste. I always get questions about bodies, so a really great way to think about who we are as an observer in terms of our body. If you've ever, if you have an iPhone and you have an app in one location and then you move it, your body will go back to that same location you had for 3 years because your body is observing and has learned, like, oh, it's in the upper right-hand corner. And it takes a few days to orient yourself. Oh, I moved Instagram to the bottom lower left-hand corner. So your body is also observing. It's like, try reading a book about golf and going to golf. You won't be that great. I mean, if you are, have at it, but you just won't be that great. And so language, emotions, and body is always at play. The question here in the chat again is, which part of an observer, your emotions, your language, your thinking, analyzing, or your body, do you think you use the most when you're observing the world? Emotions, language. Most of us, I'm seeing a lot of emotions and language. Most of us miss our body. It's one that's connecting back to our body. It's not something we learn in our society, so it tends to be a new experience. So if we understand who we are as an observer and begin to connect back to these three, we can choose our actions and ultimately get different results. So we can change the dynamic, change our lives. So one of the lenses under the language category, and this is a lens to think about who you are as an observer, is called assertions and assessments. And so I want you to think about assertions and assessments like how a model for your thinking. So beginning to pay attention to your thoughts, becoming aware, connecting to them. And assertions are facts. They're statements. So I'm going to give you a few examples here, but they're things that are proven to be real or true. And an assessment is a judgment. It's an opinion, it's a problem, it's a process of ascribing meaning to the world. So it's exactly what you did with the burger. We could all just say, that's a burger. That's an assertion. The assessment of it is the heart attack, the dinner on Friday nights, the Beyond Burger. It's the meaning that you've created in your mind unconsciously. Again, this is all happening unconsciously to make sense of that burger. So if we're to look at examples, an assertion example is, I complete math problems in school. An assessment of that is, I'm terrible at math. An assertion is, other people in my life has emotions. An assessment might be, if I manage the emotions of others, I am emotionally safe. So why the heck are we talking about assertions and assessments? The reason this is so powerful is because our brain and our body cannot separate assertions and assessments. So unless we are deeply aware of this, our whole life, every choice we make will be determined by assessments that aren't necessarily true. They will shape the quality of our life. So if I were to use the I'm bad at math, if I learned in 2nd grade that I'm bad at math, and I carried that unconscious assessment all the way into my adult years, I wouldn't necessarily take the promotion. I might not take the job that might have some basic math in it. This is all happening unconscious. It's fear-based, right? But there are assessments that I'm making that aren't necessarily fact, that aren't serving me, that are driving my entire life. So assessments truly keep us stuck. Another really great one, specifically for women in our society, is oftentimes we learn if other people have emotions, we're responsible for managing them. And we take that very unconscious assessment of the world and we bring it into our adult years, and we don't even recognize that it's driving us, but it's keeping us for asking for that promotion, because it might create some uncomfortable emotion in our boss, or it's keeping us from speaking up at that meeting, because what if the other person doesn't like what we say? Or it's keeping us from quitting the job we hate because our parents might be concerned that we're unemployed briefly. So you can begin to see how this massive assessment we've had from a very young age drives much of our lives. And the opportunity here is to begin to explore some of the assessments that you have that are unconscious in your life. And there are lots and lots of domains I encourage you to think about. And when I say domains, I mean areas of your life. We have assessments about who we are as women or as men. We have assessments about who we are in the presence of power. We have assessments about who we are as learners. We have assessment about who we are as failures. We all fail. Like, what are the judgments you hold about yourself as a failure? And the hope is that we begin to draw attention to cost. What are the costs of these assessments in our lives that are really determining a lot of our behaviors? Do we want to hold that that burger is going to cause a heart attack? Do we want to hold all of the assessments of that? Do we want to hold the assessment that it's healthy or unhealthy? Like, can we question these? But the first lens is really to draw attention to them, to understand them. So to summarize what I just said, we all have these blind spots, which are assessments, and our assessments live in our thinking patterns. And being able to identify what is fact, what is an assertion, and what is an assessment that's really driving my behavior that I don't want to hold on to anymore in my life is key for changing behavior. Because as soon as you see it, you can say, dang, that's costing too much. That belief system that I'm responsible for other people's emotions is keeping me small. I'm not having the difficult conversations I want to have. And I don't need to hold that anymore. And so the more awareness we have of these assessments in all domains of our life, as parents, as leaders, as friends, these are all different domains in relationship to food, in relationship to exercise, in relationship to, there are endless amounts of domains to explore. The more power, the more choice we have to show up as the human that we want to be. And ultimately, we're modeling, as humans, we're showing everybody else in our lives what's okay and what's not okay, and how to live life. And so if you become aware of these assessments, you're showing other people that they can create the life that they want to. So for today in our conversation, I would ask you to identify 2 to 3 assessments you have in leadership. So when it comes to your relationship to being a leader, what are 2 or 3 assessments that you think you hold? Whatever comes to mind right away, I would recommend writing down. So just write them down, pull out your pen and paper. I can tell you one of my master assessments as a leader that I held for a long time is that I'm too young. I'm too young to lead. I'm too young to coach. I'm too young to have a presence among senior leadership teams. And that drove a lot of decisions. I probably wouldn't even be here today if I were vulnerable with you. So this is a vulnerable exercise in some way. You're saying, what are my core assessments, belief systems about leadership? In your breakout room, I would ask that you begin to identify what are the unconscious assessments? What are the costs of these? So that's a question I was responding with, is believing that I'm too young drives so much of my behavior, and identifying the cost is really what allowed me to, like, that's too expensive. It's too much for me to shrink anymore. It's costing me too much of my life, my energy, of what I want. And then how are they creating behaviors that may not serve you? So what are the assessments? What is the cost? And then maybe what are some of the behaviors that are driving these?